are again, another episode of Knifemaking Down Under. We've got Corin and Mert with us again today, and hopefully for the next hour or so, we'll be able to entertain you guys with some informative talk. Otherwise, we'll just talk and you can listen anyway. How are you guys going today?
Look, to be honest, mate, I'm a little bit under the pump, quite stressed, and I reckon I'd rather be at home in the shed.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same, but I think I'd rather be somewhere at a job. I've been in the shed under the pump stressed, and yeah, I got to admit, this is probably the first show I've ever got to that point this far out from a show being a few days. Well, I'm really over it.
What happens is when you work in the shed for so long all by yourself and under the pump, you starting to get cabin fever. Because I realize I take my kids to school in the morning, then I'm in the shed. I'm by myself, just working, and you're starting to get crazy.
Yeah.
Or is it just me?
You get to well, at least you get to take the kids out, mate. I just go straight from the house up to the workshop.
Yeah, man. It's like you're by yourself. You're in the shed, and I have a board that I have my prep list, and I'm looking at it over again, and I can't read. Like I've written some things, and I'm looking at it. Have I done it? Have I updated it? What time is it? What day it is? And you're losing the count of the days, and yeah, it's been a rather stressful show prep for me too.
I sit on the other side of the fence here now, so I deal with the day-to-day stress of what I do within this business as a general manager. I used to prepare for the shows. I used to do all that myself in my spare time because the shows were so small and so forth. But these days I can't keep up. We take a full truck. We've got actually 2 trucks going over there with gear to the Sydney Knife Show, and there's no way I could do it by myself, so I don't get involved at all. I pay other people to do it. So they're running around pulling their hair out, stressed out. I've got key people sitting there editing podcasts that should be doing that, so that's making the others angry. So I'm kind of dealing with that passive-aggressive hatred of show preparation, whilst I myself am pulling my hair out about business management issues. So, yeah, look, I see your points, but at the end of the day, it's your own business, and what you do is what you do. And I mean, let's be honest, guys. Shows are fantastic to get in front of people and to represent what you do. But if you go to a show with nothing at all, Kev, you can still sit there and talk about your courses. Mert, same deal. You run that.
Oh, yeah, mate. Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
I had actually.
You can actually sell.
I had actually.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
You're right. Yeah, stop talking while I'm interrupting. I was going to say, I actually had that thought earlier on after when I got back from Blade Show. You know, I might have a table with 4 knives and just sit there and really friggin' enjoy it. Like, absolutely enjoy it, because there's not that pre-show lead up of insane stress, late nights, and, you know, sort of worrying whether what you're making is going to be appealing. It's like, screw it, I've got 4 knives made. I'm just going to take them and just do nothing. But I didn't do that in the end. I started working on a lot more knives.
Yeah. And
we
Blade
all do that.
Blade Show.
We all say we're going to take 5 and end up with 20.
And that Blade Show, anyway, you sold out in the first sort of day, wasn't it? That you sold out.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was good. So that was the same sort of thing where, at least at Blade Show though, when you're over there, if you do sell what you've got, you can just disappear and go and see everything. Whereas I think, like I said, because it's home country, and I do promote my courses and stuff, even if you sell all your knives, you've got to sit there and talk to people as they come past.
And don't tell me you don't love it. That's half the beauty of a knife show is the social aspect, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus, you tell the people that you're going to be there on the weekend and you sell out. And if you pack your stuff, and we'll be like, people will be coming to table, and I thought Kev was here.
I was pretty amazed how many people pulled out at the knife shows with little signs on their at Blade Show, with little knives. I was surprised how many people at Blade Show just abandoned their tables after they sold out. Had a little note there, sold out, see you next year. And I kind of found that a bit strange, because if you're paying that much money to be at a show, you would think there would be a benefit to sitting there even with just pictures of your knives to show people, so that you can talk about what you can make for them and custom knives. Because, I mean, why cut it off? Why say, I've sold all my product, therefore I can't do any more? But you understand, I'm coming from a sales background. I've never worked in a job in sales where you sell out, you just sit down and stop working. That's just not the way it works. You try and sell more, you take orders, you look at other products you might be able to offer, or conversations and networking that you might be able to do that's going to set you up for the next
I don't think a lot of people left Corn. I think even the ones that had the sold out thank you sign, they're in the room, they're checking other makers' work, or they're introducing themselves to the new makers, and they're meeting the other people that they keep seeing their work on social media, but they don't know them in person. So I think a lot of the guys who even sold out, they were in the room. Myself and Kev was included. I mean, we were lucky enough to sell out in the first day, but we were just going through the tables and checking other makers' work and meeting other makers. I think that's what a lot of the guys were doing.
Yeah, you're probably right. But to me, it would be worth having a pull-up banner or a few photographs of your work and some stuff there, some business cards, even if you're not at the table, a display of things like that are going to show people you were there and what you do make, so that if they like the look of your work and they missed you out, then next year they can put you on the top of the list to visit when they come.
Yeah,
maybe.
True.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people who sell knives, people who make knives aren't salesmen. So it's kind of, I get that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the States, it's one of those things again where you've got a lot of international people going to Blade Show. It's that catch-22. As a maker, do you leave your table and go and get the opportunity, which you might not normally do, to catch up and say g'day, or do you wait for randoms like me to come up and say, I finally get a chance to meet you? I've followed your work on Instagram for years. So I can see it both ways, but Sydney's a bit different. Like I said, it's much smaller. Still a big show in the scheme of things, but much smaller. And I think you could almost leave a back in 15 minutes sign at Sydney if you sold out and come back and be there to talk to people if they wanted to meet you.
It's much easier at Sydney. If you do the calculations on Blade Show, there's about 3,000 tables, something like that. You have about 45 seconds per table to have a look at everything. So you can't spend longer than 45 seconds at any table if you want to see everything in the rooms. And I say rooms because for those in Australia that haven't been to Blade Show, now there's 2 rooms at Blade Show, and the second room's probably bigger than Sydney Knife Show. In fact, I'd say it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's incredible. It's an incredible situation. So, anyway, what do? I'm pretty proud of the Sydney Knife Show. It's a great event, but Blade's just another level. Oh, and I mean, I've been to Seki as well, as has Kev, and Seki Knife Show, and different again.
Yeah, the Seki Knife Show was kind of crazy. It was, for those obviously might not have been there as well, reasonably small room, not much space between the tables, and heaps and heaps and heaps of people in there. And it was like, at one point where I was at the Seki show, I just couldn't be bothered anymore trying to see tables, so I left and went outside. And then there's a whole outdoor festival area. It's like 1.5 kilometres long, and it's just jam-packed with, what they say, like there was 20,000 people in the street at one time. So it's pretty amazing when you go over and see what happens in different sort of countries and cultures with knife shows.
Yeah, that's for those that live in a tent. Seki's in Japan, so it's a little regional town that's very famous for knife making. It's outside of the major cities. A couple of trains to get up there, and the last train's kind of a more of a little rail tram. Kev.
Yeah, we went from the Shinkansen to a standard train to a like a 1920s carriage from somewhere. San Francisco tram.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I really like Seki. I thought it was good. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. I'm off to Paris, so obviously go to Paris, the Paris knife shows. There's 2 on there in September, so I'll go to those. And I'll report back accordingly.
Yeah. Hey, so Mert,
Yes.
how's your show prep going? What are you doing at the moment?
Oh, I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest, man. So when we talked, Kev, if you remember, a month ago, I was saying, look, man, I'm just gonna make 8 knives. That's it. And every show is unique. Every show has a different clientele. And when I did my previous shows in Sydney, I had an idea of what to bring, and I was just thinking, I'll just make those knives. But what happens is, if I make more simpler knives, smaller chef knives, they tend to sell in Sydney. But if I don't end up selling them, I have more simple stuff that available for sale on my website than I would like to have. So it feels like I'm not pushing myself, especially after being Blade and seeing those great pieces. I was like, okay, change the plans. I'm not going to do 8. I'm going to do some more other stuff. And lately, like last week, I've been working on one knife, took my whole week, and I haven't even finished it yet. So I've been doing more complex stuff. I've finished about 7 knives, and I have 5 more to go. But every day it comes to closer to the Sydney show date, I'm like, yeah, it'll be 12, maybe 11, maybe 10. Yeah, I have some complex stuff built. I'm doing 2 integral Damascus ones. One of them is a feather integral. The other one is just random pattern integral. I also did a Damasteel integral. So I bought a bar of Damasteel a while ago, and I forged 2 knives of it. One was unfortunately it wasn't good. So I had a little bit of crack and it was going through, so I had to ditch it. And the second one was a good. So I'm trying to finish Damasteel integral. And I also made a knife out of a wood steel. So I'm trying to finish that as well. So I got a bit going on under the pump big time.
Forging Downunder.
Yeah, well, it's all right.
What was that, Corin?
Forging Downunder.
Yes.
So you bought the forgeable bar?
Yes, I bought the round bar. I think it was 33 millimeter thick.
Yeah.
So it's not easy. And I have a 25 kilo power hammer, so it's 55 pounder. It's good. It obviously does a lot more than what my hand can do, but the Damasteel, especially if stainless steel, doesn't move as easy as simple carbon steels. Like some people complain, when people go from simple 10 series carbon steel to 52-100 and they see how stiff under the hammer 52-100 is. So when you go from 52-100 to a forging stainless, that's even another degree harder because steel doesn't move much and has a very short working window. If you go too hot, whole thing crumbles. And if you go too cold, and obviously it's an air hardening steel, and you're pretty much beating a hardening steel, which is not good for the structural integrity of it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you got to have a set of jewels to do that anyway, I reckon. Forged Damasteel.
They go with the reverse correlation with the brain, like, I got $700 worth of steel. I'm going to make something out of it, or like, yeah, that's not the smartest way of doing business. But I just want to do something a bit more challenging than just making something simpler, I guess.
Yeah,
not the best business decision. How was your show going, Kev? Show prep going?
Yeah. Look, it's progressing along slower than I'd like it to, but still fast enough to get me some stock to go. Yesterday I had planned to do some leather work because I've, for the most part, finished the knives, and then I'd planned to do some leather work yesterday, and I set up and just drew out my templates because I don't often have the same sized sheath for the knives that I make. So drew up my templates, popped them onto the leather, drew it all out, cut out about 8 sheaths, and then realised I'd put my template on upside down and they were all going to be left-handed. So yeah,
situation normal.
I had one of those moments. The good thing is now I've got 8 left-handed sheaths of varying size. If someone does come to my table and want to buy one of my nice ambidextrous knives and wants a left-handed sheath, I can knock one up pretty quick.
Any chance to salvage them, Kev? Any chance to salvage those pieces, or they're just left-handed?
No, if I do them the current style, they'll be left-handed, but I can vary the style slightly and I'll get away with making them right-handed. But I'll just leave them aside for now. It's not the end of the world. I've got plenty of leather there. It was just one of those moments where I wasn't sure whether to scream or laugh or cry or whatever. So I just got on with it and spent the whole day cutting, dyeing, and stitching my sheaths, and finished up at about 9 o'clock last night or something. So it felt good because I got everything done in a day, but there was a good section of that morning which was written off. So yeah, I'm going all right. I've got a good range of hunting knives. I've got a few kitchen knives. I'll have probably close to a standard sort of knife show table for me. So I'm pretty happy with where it's at.
How many you mean, like, for those people who don't know how many you have to bring? What's your average table?
Look, my average knife show table would be, I'd probably have 20 knives.
Okay.
Which is a lot. And it's because of the way I've always made knives. I tend to do a larger volume of knives in one go. And kind of what you're talking about, I haven't branched out into doing anything overly complicated, especially this time, because I literally had 2 weeks from Blade Show to here, and I had no knives when I came home. So I'm sort of being conservative to a degree, but getting stuff done.
Is there any special projects you bring in, or anything that for any special stuff you'll have on your table? That's something that you haven't done before? Any special timber or any special steel that you're working with this time?
Yeah, look, I've got I'm a bit of a hoarder from a lot of the past shows. I've been going over to Takapoo Steel and buying their stuff and not really doing anything with it. And I got a custom order at the show last year, actually, and the guy wanted it delivered this year. So I'm using some of the E02 stainless clad sand my steel for a set of kitchen knives. They are pretty special, but I'm not going to reveal just yet what is special about them, other than to say that I think I'm the first person in the world to use a particular handle material that will be on them. Or is on them.
Come on, man. Give
That's
it
a
up.
big
Give it
call.
up. You're about to use Bunnings.
No.
That's a big
No,
call.
I can't give you.
Aren't you?
What do you got?
I got a nice piece of a couple of knots out of some walnut from Bunnings. Yeah.
Yeah, Bunnings, man.
Stabilised with sausage fat.
Right.
Yeah. No, honestly, no, it was they're very nice, very thin, very, very nice knives. Matt, I've got you next to me at the show, and I'm going to show you because I want to get your feedback, because stuff that you've given me advice-wise, as well as people like, say, Chad from Tri-Stone Blades, stuff that I've picked up from you guys, but, just put it into the storage bank and not done a lot with it. I've actually applied to this set of knives, and I'm pretty stoked with them. I think they're the best that I've done so far.
I'm looking forward to see them, mate.
Yeah, you can be as critical as you like. Just remember, we're sharing a room.
Okay.
That brings up two interesting points. The first is that his name's Chaddles and it's Tri-Stony. The second is the second is when people, other knife makers, show you their knives, and I don't know, I can't pick up a knife and handle it when someone's giving it to me to look at. I can't pick it up and handle it and not see what's there, and so sometimes it's a very awkward conversation because they're really proud and super stoked, and I look at it and think, oh geez, look at the gap, or look at those profiling marks along the spine or whatever, and it can be quite difficult to give good feedback and not be sort of rude. Do you find that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, I was state rep for Sydney and New South Wales for the Knife Makers Guild for a period of time that I can't remember, and you just had to be black and white with people, like not rude, but pointing stuff out that's not right, or is got gaps or whatever, provided you don't sort of call them names while you're doing it and then laugh and throw the knife down. If you're doing it in a constructive way that's going to help that person improve, if they take your advice on board, that's, you just got to have those conversations. And I failed a few people on the guild assessment stuff because we had a standards document to go by and their stuff didn't meet that mark. But what I tended to do, especially with those, because it was normally people sending me knives and then me communicating electronically, was I'd tell them, you know, you haven't passed and give me a few minutes and I'll show you why. And then I'd take a series of photos of the things that failed, tell them what failed and how they can fix it. So if you're at that level where you can give constructive feedback to someone and then say, you know, have you thought about doing this as a different technique? You'll get a better result. You know, if someone's not going to take that advice on board, then good luck. If they cry, well, that's unfortunate. Sometimes that stuff happens.
But as a maker, don't you think, like, if you're handing a knife to someone, as a maker, if there's anything wrong with it, you'll be the first person to know about it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and
also depends on how honest you want me to be. Like, sometimes I get asked, like, what do you think about it? And if it's someone like a close friend like yourself, and I'll be saying everything exactly the way it's supposed to be. But if a stranger comes in, I'm going to go a little bit easy and lighter on them.
Yeah.
Because I know you're not going to, even if I pick on you, you're not going to be offended. But although we're sharing a room, and I tend to fall asleep earlier, so I have to be careful.
Mate, that's where you're wrong. I will be absolutely offended, and I'm going to stalk you until you fall asleep, and I'm going to jump on you and give you a live feed.
Well, we're still on for the live feed, aren't we, Kev? It's all planned as planned.
That is planned, yeah.
No worries at all. Well, you still doing the tea bagging?
I didn't dish it out. What is this?
Yeah, Mert's getting a little bit worried.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah. No, it's a funny thing. Like I said, if the other side of it is, if I hand someone a knife like Mert, and I know there's stuff wrong with it, I expect him to pick that stuff up. That's the first stuff he's going to say back to me. He's going to be like, you knew this was wrong, didn't you? And I'll be like, yeah, I knew that was wrong. Yeah, but it's not often that's the case. I mean, everyone has those times where, you make something that you're absolutely 100% proud of, and the first person that sees it that, really knows knife making and knives will find something wrong.
Yeah, that
you want the reality check in life. Take your knife past Sean McIntyre or Peter Del Rasso and tell them to give you feedback on it. And I guarantee you that you're going to come out with a list of things to fix or do better next time, and you're going to feel gutted for a little while, but then after a while you're going to go, man, what an opportunity. They didn't say they didn't like it, but they said, here's these things to do better.
Exactly.
And if you're not looking for that stuff, if you're not looking for that stuff, you're never going to, improve or stretch your boundaries, I reckon.
No, exactly the two people I run mine past as well. And Peter always says, I don't know the first thing about barrel knives, but, and then he'll start ripping into them. And and he's got an eye that's, I've got an eye like a busted cock, and Peter's eyes are much better than mine. So he's actually seeing things in them that, and I look at that and think, I know what caused that problem, and I didn't even know it was a problem until now, but I know what to do to fix it. And, my next one didn't have that. It had a totally different problem, but, at the end of the day, as you say, that's how you improve. Take it on board.
Yeah. And it could be simple things, like with your equipment that cause a repetitive issue on your knives and stuff that you're not really aware of until someone like Peter or Sean or one of the other guys has a look and says, let's go for the classic. Your plunge lines don't match up very well. And you go, oh, well, it seems to be, everyone's the same. What would you try and say to look at for that? And it could be that you don't use a file guide. You're more a traditionalist and you want to just do it by eye. So at least they get a file guide. So you try with a file guide, things improve. It could be things like one of the batches of belts that I got weren't cut as clean on one side as the other. And I had couple of knives came out and they were like the shittiest plunge lines I've done in years. And I couldn't work out what it was for the life of me. And I was talking to Ian Stewart saying I was going crazy. And he said, just flip your belt over and do one plunge side on, get the clean cut, flip your belt over and do the clean cut on the same, effectively the same side of the belt, but on the other side of the machine. And that bloody well worked, and that's what it was.
You know, the biggest culprit I found with the consistent mistakes happening from the tool, a lot of people don't check their platen, their flat platen. And over time, they wear down. And the side that you push the most, that's going to have a hole, that's going to have a divot in it. And when you see some knives and they have the constant divot at the same spot, and usually that's the case from the platen not being true anymore.
Yeah,
I had that problem with my earlier knives, and then one day I'm like, oh, there's a divot here. So.
Yeah, so you can get that fixed by either buying a carbide platen or one of those high temp glass or ceramic tiles or something on there, and keep an eye on it, because even that stuff's going to wear out over time.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Probably a little slower than a mild steel platen.
Yeah, the platen's a pretty easy thing to dress as well. So if you find that it's got a dish in it, you can grind it or sand it back if your grinder's out of action, so that it's at least serviceable to get you out of a pickle. But yeah, there's no real substitute for the carbide.
So what else has been happening in the week since we last talked? Anyone had any revelations anything crazy go on?
I got a new machine. A new tool.
Again.
A new tool. There's something,
again.
I mightn't make a lot of knives, but shit, I make a lot of tools to make knives, and I get a lot of tools to make knives. And that's it.
I was going to say, you have a lot of tools to make knives.
I've got a pretty good workshop. At the end of the day, I've been in every bulk buy. So,
let's just pause right there for one fucking moment. And I've got to swear here, because I want to go back a second to where I hear a little thing saying, I've got a pretty good workshop. Well,
it's not bad, is it? I mean, I'm going to say I'm fairly lucky, but I'm not really. I'm fairly indebted to the bank. That's what I really am. Yeah. but I figure, fuck it, I can't take it with me. I'd rather live my life where I can walk into my workshop and do what I love without the stress of not being able to fit in my workshop, which was the problem before.
Corey, what do you have in your shop? What sort of equipment do you have in your shop?
Let's go on a little bit of a tour. There's 2 fly presses, numerous drill presses.
2 fly presses.
Yeah, well,
all right.
Well, one of them set up for stamping and the other one's not set up at all, but I'm going to set that up for doing some blacksmithing sort of stuff, texturing and things like that. I've got, let me think, the usual woodworking gear, but I've also got a bandsaw variable speed, the metal wood jet bandsaw. We did a bulk buy on recently. We've got one running on them at the moment. Then I've got a Gibson 72, which is a beautiful grinder, best I've used. And then I've got the surface grinder, which I've done that's a funny story in itself. I've done a belt conversion on that, but it basically didn't cost me anything. It got thrown in when I bought an EDM machine in an auction at a whim. It was smashed up and broken, and I basically sold the EDM for what I paid for both, and then I worked on this thing and got it running. And I won't tell you, it didn't cost that much to do, but it probably took about 3 weeks out of my life because it had fallen down on the front, and it's a bit. You've seen it, Kev. It's probably half a ton of machine.
Easy.
Yeah, and half a ton of machine landing on all the control knobs. It wasn't pretty, but I like a tinker, and that one's now running. We've got the little sandblaster, radius master, and various polishing, sanding, disc grinders, that sort of thing. Mill, lathe, in the
couple of power hammers.
Yeah, a couple of power hammers.
You've got a power hacksaw.
Oh, I love my power hacksaw. The old gear is just something about it, and this new one is a power file. So it's what's called a filing and sawing machine, or a die filer. And it is basically a power hacksaw, but it's mounted vertically. You can put files in it. It's got a table that you can, put your work on that you're filing. and file to the line. So the Americans call them die filers. Europe and in UK, they're known as filing and sawing machines. And geez, it's just a really old, beautiful piece of 1950s machinery architecture. And if I don't get any use out of it, I still like having it in my shop.
Yeah, it's a very cool bit of equipment.
I'm pretty impressed with it. Yeah, I mean, for what it is a half a ton machine. It weighs 520 kilos according to the manual. And this is the great thing about the world today, guys. You buy a machine like that in 20 years ago, and it was like you were living in the dark. You didn't know anything about it. You couldn't get a manual. You were living in the dark. Now, 10 minutes of Googling, you've got a manual, the instruction manual. You've got all the information off YouTube about the different machines and how they work, and you basically train yourself on anything. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm pretty happy that I bought it. To be honest, I mean, at the end of the day, I got it for $300, so it's not. You know what I mean?
You'd be hard pressed. You'd be hard pressed not to just pick it up and wrap it up in tarp if you got it at that price anyway.
Well, that's it. Well, I didn't pick it up. I rang because it was in Newcastle, so I rang the Newcastle boys, and Sausage Man picked it up for me. So Jamie Bishop picked it up and drove it down for me, and which was mighty kind of him.
Is there anything the Sausage Man can't do? That's what I want to know.
Oh, he's a legend.
Man, he's a legend. Just before Blade Show, I went in the shed. I turned my VFD, and all of a sudden he started making like silly noises, like as if my VFD had a fucking diarrhea. And all of a sudden, all of my VFD was shut, so I had no grinder. This is like a week before the Blade Show. And I called him, and he was like, okay, I'll be there in the morning. He came in, he fixed it. Then by my VFD is controlling both of my disc grinder and my belt grinder. After a couple days, the connection of the disc grinder failed, and I was like, I'm grateful. I'm not going to make a fuss about it. I'll just work through it. And he asked me how my grinder was working. I said, look, man, it's great, but my disc grinder is not responding. He's like, okay, I'll be there in a couple hours. This guy left whatever he was doing, just came and fixed my grinder. So shout out to Sausage Man. He saved the Blade Show for me.
What can you say, though? What can you say about a guy that at every event and show that we go to in Australia, and I've got to admit I was let down in America, but that we won't harp on that, a guy that walks around with food for everyone. Walks around with a fry pan full of sausage for all the exhibitors, and looks after people that, when you're at a show, you stand there talking, you look at your watch and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. But Jamie around, he looks after all of us, and he's just genuinely a great guy. Didn't expect anything in return. I know I made it worth his while, but obviously, he would have done it anyway,
Yeah, that's it.
So
shout out to Jamie.
Sausage Man Forge is his Instagram. So I think it is. Is that right? Better get that right.
Yeah, Sausage Man Forge. Yeah, he was in my shop last weekend. We did some semi. He has a great footage of it. Because I was forging the steel, and all of a sudden Jamie started laughing. I'm like, you okay, mate? What's happening? I didn't understand what was happening. Then I saw the video. Throughout the video, you see all the molten flux, all the borax was like skirting all the way to his face, and he was burning his beard and all that. So all the footage is still on his Instagram. You can see in a slow motion. It looks like he's getting shot in the face with the molten borax.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just looking on his channel now. There's a picture of me with my filer and smiling from ear to ear. Pretty excited. Anyway, never mind. You're there too, Mert. I'm trying to find the video.
Speaking of Instagram, guys, I just want to make sure everybody's aware now. Our Instagram page is active now. The Knifemaking Downunder podcast on Instagram. So I just activated the page. I posted a picture of us from the Blade Show. And soon we'll be doing more Instagram posts. And so if you have any cool stories, if you have any cool pictures, please tag us there as well, so we can share your stories and share what you're doing.
I've got a lot of pictures there that I haven't sent because I've had a bit of a technical issue. But they're of various pictures of the guys down there in the pit at various stages of the evening. I think I've got Kev under a table and Henning being Henning and Mareko and just general chaos, really. Oh, and maybe a little video of Kev capturing the arm wrestling championships in the pit.
For the Instagram stuff as well, tag us in there, especially if you're an Australian maker and you're in your workshop doing what you do. Tag us in some photos. Let's get a bit of publicity out there for Australian makers. Doesn't matter what you're working on, just jump in and have a go. Try and help each other out a bit. The other thing I was going to say was with Sausage Man. He's, I believe, currently at Everleigh, or was at Everleigh, because through the Knife Art Association that runs the majority of the shows in Australia, we've got Mike Cthulhu out here, who's Big Heavy Swords or whatever it is on YouTube.
Big giant
currently
swords.
doing a couple of works. Big
Crazy
giant
back.
sword.
Big
Well,
giant
don't
sword.
pick on me because I couldn't even remember the name of our podcast last week. So
We didn't have a name last week.
What's the name of the podcast again?
Big Giant Swords, that's where he's from. So there's some guys at Everleigh at the moment making some big giant swords, I believe, which is pretty cool.
You seen any pictures?
I've seen a few random pictures, but nothing completed. It looks like they're having fun.
Yeah, I
and
saw
Mike-
I saw some today. Yeah, there's some big, crazy, stupid looking swords coming out of that place. They look like a lot of fun. All right.
I haven't looked at the anything online too much today. I've been trying to get my shit together. Yeah, so that's something pretty cool that the Knife Art Association organised, and he's going to be, although you won't hear this podcast till after it, he was at the Sydney show, and hopefully everyone gets a chance to get there and say good day to him.
Speaking
that'd be good.
of people at the Sydney show, mate, I'll be picking up Jim Cooper this week from the airport. I'm picking up
That's cool.
picking up the guys from Paragon and Jim Cooper.
Jim is absolutely stoked. He's so excited. He's been putting up some stuff on Instagram. He's so happy about coming out here and bringing his family out for the show. I've got a couple of knives that I wouldn't mind him taking photos of myself. I'm going to line up for a couple of those, and we'll see where that takes us. I think he's going to be pleasantly surprised at the uptake of people getting photos.
I hope so. I hope he gets the support that he deserves. It was a big call from the Knife Art Association to bring him out, but I definitely think it was the right call because, in terms of getting exposure for the Australian knife industry, there wouldn't be too many people that could be up there with Jim Cooper.
Yeah, I think between the two, Mike and Jim, Mike with his million subscribers on YouTube, if he gives us guys a shout out, us guys as in Australian knife makers a shout out, the Sydney show a shout out, that's going to go pretty far, expansive too. But just in terms of the professional side of the industry, hard to go past someone like Jim for that promotion.
No, absolutely. I follow him on Facebook, and the level of work that goes through his hands is quite incredible. And it's not just the high end stuff. He just does beautiful photography of all kinds of knives. So, yeah, really fantastic. Really fantastic. Hopefully we'll see some Australian makers getting some recognition that they truly deserve.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next annual issue of Blade magazine.
Yeah, right. I mean, the last one.
Yeah.
There'll be some knives for sure from here. Hopefully I can get three of the nicer ones done so I can take pics. No stress. Just got a few days left.
I was hoping to have my second knife of the year finished, but as it's turned out, I haven't even started it. So, yeah.
It's all right. You have all the tools, Corin. It's not going to take you long. You have all the tools.
I got the tools. I'm going to file it out the next one.
Pure stock removal.
Yeah, old school.
Just made off your die grinder, file grinder thing, whatever it is.
Well, you've seen me make knives, Kev. You know how much filing's involved in what I do. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that stuff is going to be unreal.
So I don't know if it's going to be worthwhile, but I really don't care either. I just fucking like it. So that's that's why it's there. And my shop, my previous workshop, for those that remember, there'll be quite a few out there that do. Everything had to be packed up in there, basically up against each other. Everything was on pallets so you could move it around. And I swore when I built the bigger shop, or when the bank built the bigger shop. That I wouldn't do that again. That I'd have enough space and I could walk around everything. But well, yeah, I'm probably not that far off it. I can't help myself.
Nah, that's it. The bigger the workshop, the more shit you got to fill. That's how it goes.
Yeah. So anyway, no, all good. And
For anyone that doesn't know, like reality, the size of your workshop, jump on Instagram and have a look at the hashtag Bunnings Picton. Go to Bunnings Picton and have a look at the photos.
I think you're the only one that's used that one, so I think I might have chucked a couple on there.
Yeah. I think I've stuck a couple on there. You'll get the idea.
It's a good little space for knife making, and I've always it's always been a shared space. I love having people there making knives as well. So I guess you probably get the same thing with the courses, having different people in your shop, like having Jamie in, for example, or having other people come and work with you in the shop. I get a real kick out of that.
Yeah, it is good fun. I just had a friend drop around literally just before the podcast. I had to kick him out, and he's keen to come around and make a few more things in the workshop. And it's just good when you have that interest from people.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, I have a question. Corin, what was the first knife you made by yourself, and what do you had in the shop back then?
Right. First knife I made. Well, I was buying blanks for years, Mert. So I was buying knife blanks. I was buying basically, I like the Hella knives.
That's cheating, though.
Well, okay, it's cheating, but that's how I started. We're talking 2002, long time ago. And then it was getting harder and harder to get the stuff out of the States, and the currency fluctuations and everything else. I just got the shits with it. And I sold my wife's car and bought a Radius Master, and then I thought, now I've got this Radius Master, it's probably time I learnt how to make blades. So then I started making blades out of saw blades and scrap metal and all the rest of it, and the rest is history. So the first one I made fully ground by myself was a very simple, if anyone's familiar with the Hella range, it was very similar to a Hella Nying, which is a Scandinavian design, and like quite a wide but short blade, general purpose, carving, fishing, general purpose Scandinavian grind blade. And then the first one I forged was made out of an old bearing case, and I forged that out, and yeah. So what I had back then was all pretty simple. I had an anvil, I had a gas forge, and a Radius Master. That was what I had. And you don't need that stuff. I mean, it's nice to have, but you don't need it. For me, I've always enjoyed the tools as much as the knives. That's the honest truth.
Well, do you still have that knife, or is it gone, lost?
No, I've got one of them. Got the forged one. And this is something that's very close to me. I actually gave it to my father-in-law, that knife, and he committed suicide a few years ago, and I got the knife back, and I don't want that knife for a number of reasons, but I do want the knife for a number of reasons, and that's a hard question to answer, that one, Mert, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it's important in our industry, because there's so many people in our industry that suffer from varying degrees and sources of mental health problems, and it's a real thing for all of us. We all know the struggles. Some of them are public, and some of them are not so public. And we've heard stories of the guys that, for example, PTSD, ex-services, that are in our industry, and there's a heck of a lot of them, and they've put their lives to a good cause for the community, fighting in various places in the world, or as police or ambulance officers, and when they come out of those services, they're in a really bad way. They've got the post-traumatic stress disorder, and they need something to put their mind to, and for them, knife making can be a really positive outlet. And I would just, for me, we didn't get the opportunity to help, and I just, that makes me, I really don't want to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough too, man.
Yeah. Well, what was your first knife by yourself, Kevin?
I similar to Corin. Well, didn't use blanks, but I had a really small space in my current garage where I had to move things out, put things back, Tetris everything each time I wanted to do it. But my first knife I made myself, I used an old file, forged out let's go and say with artistic license, a Tanto style blade.
Oh no.
Probably more of a Quaken style blade, long and pointy. Basically, the fucking thing was, and I had my first grinder that I used at home in my workshop was a belt sander that I stuck in my vise and ran upside down, and you'd put like a very small amount of pressure on it and it would bog down and stop. So my first knife had a real cool convex grind. Like it wasn't hollow and it wasn't flat. It was definitely just a convex ground thing. And then I put on some, I don't know, cheap scales, Bunnings timber scales. It was my first crack at. I did a knife course initially and learned how to do basic sort of forging and stuff. But this was my first go on my own, and I did a basic sort of handle on it, and it was all right. But I don't have it anymore. I don't know what happened with it. I think I gave it away. I didn't. It was all right, but didn't really hold too much sentimental value to hang on to it for me. So, yeah. What about you, Mo? What was your first one on your own?
First on my own, this was probably a couple of weeks after I'd done a course with Keith. So I've done a course with Keith and we made a small kitchen knife. And I'm like, yeah, this is a hobby that I want to do. So while I was at Keith's place, we profiled a little paring knife. So we only profiled it, but we didn't have time to heat treat it. So I just gave me a little, the blank. So when I went home, I made a forge out of the old barbecue we had. So I made a charcoal forge. So I heat treated in a charcoal forge, and I didn't have grinder. My grinder was a palm sander. So for my first 2 or 3
that's
knives,
worse than mine.
that's worse than yours, because like I had this little shitty palm sander in my hand, like I'm going like from side to side, and the sandpaper falls off. And after probably like 3 hours of grinding and maybe like only grinding half mil, I was like, fuck this. I ended up taking like just sandpaper and use my DMT. I had the DMT, the diamond embedded metal thing. That's used for thinning the blades or flattening the stones. I used my DMT, a lot of elbow grease, and I think like that thing took me like maybe 30 to 40 hours. And I used to read on the forums like, oh, you don't need power tools. Only thing you need to make the knife is like files. And like, no, this is bullshit. It took me 40 hours, and it was ugly. I only had 2 sets of sandpaper. I bought a 180 grit and I bought 1500 grit. I was like, the ones in the middle, nah, you don't need them. I even did a hand sanded, but I only did like a dodgy 180 hand sanding. Then I went straight to 1500. So all you see is like a mirror polish surfaces with like deep 180 scratches. Oh, it was ugly. I had some burn. It was my second full tang knife, and I ended up, it was sharp. It was cutting well, but I ended up giving to a friend of ours because she saw me cut a tomato. I was like, oh, this is really sharp. And she's a family friend of ours.
Yep.
I said, look, just have it. Because after seeing the knife a couple days, I was like, no, this is an ugly knife. I just want to get out of I don't want to see this knife again. Please take it out of my sight. Thank you.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That palm sander.
I'm just still picturing you with your little hand sander.
Oh man, and the stupid thing will, the sandpaper will just like, if I hit the blade, all of a sudden the sandpaper will fly and it'll go like the neighbor's yard, or it will just fly on the top of on the roof, and I'll have to get a new sandpaper. Oh man, it was. Whew, I'm glad those days are gone. I'm not using palm sanders or multi-tool. After that, I use multi-tool, but man, there's nothing like using a good grinder.
Yeah.
No,
I had the multi-tool following the sander, which was only marginally better.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate enough to get a second-hand 2x72, but it was single-speed underpowered thing as well. But it made a fairly remarkable difference to the whole process. And then obviously after that, I bought my Radius Master, and now I've got a couple of the Shopmate 48s in the workshop as well. So kind of lucky now.
Yeah, the Shopmate
You
48.
forget.
That's the noob grinder. That's my baby.
Noob.
The noob. Well,
The noob.
I still call it the noob.
Yeah,
I bought it as the noob. It's going to stay the noob, you bastards.
it's always a noob to me, mate. Don't worry.
And you sell the fucking things.
Yeah, that's it. Ah, fuck. You know, I mean, it all started as a bit of a joke, and at the end of the day, mate, I'm quite happy with that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a joke anymore. But not anymore. There's
No.
we're snowed under at the moment, mate. We're 5 days behind getting orders out. You can just only imagine how many orders are sitting there. I've got 6 people packing. It's unbelievable. It's a busy time.
Wow.
Busy time of year for us, of course, in the gas industry, being winter. But
Yes.
no, it's not a good customer experience at the moment, and working hard to try and get on top of it.
Yeah. I'm just going to wait till they come to the show and see if I've got any money to buy anything this time round.
Sell some knives, my friend. Sell some knives.
And the
That's what
second you
happens.
sell knives, you're like, oh, I sold knives. I'm like, oh, I need belts. I need sandpaper.
Steel.
I need more steel as well. I might as well.
We'll have
spread it all.
We'll have two trucks of gear there, so it's a big show, and you know I'm committed to supporting the knife industry, and so definitely Gamaco is as well. So by default, so we obviously book out the biggest space at the Sydney Knife Show. We've got, in fact, just about every show in Australia. I think Gamaco is always the biggest sponsor and supporter, so we go for the platinum sponsorships, and you know, we do our bit to put back in as well. Make sure the shows happen.
So is it true that you're actually parking your truck in the venue this time?
That is, as of today, that is the plan. They assure me it's going to happen.
So are you going to have the truck in the room?
There's load limits for the ramp and things, and there's some hurdles to jump over. Yeah, the truck will be in the room. They've got it all. Look, that's the plan. Okay, I'm not sure how it's going to end up. I'm fairly sure I know what's going to happen. We'll leak oil all over the carpet and have to replace $200,000 worth of carpet. And it'll be a nightmare. But look, it's going to look pretty impressive. Have you seen the truck since we had it? Since we had the modifications done?
Modifications?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, we took an old. We're basically many years ago. It's always my stories always start that sort of time frame. We had a guy here that suggested a really good idea would be to go around the bush with a van, which we just got an old bus, an old coaster. We put gas components in it. We drove around the bush and we handed out sold gas components out of the back of the van. So kind of like a Snap-on Tools truck, but before Snap-on Tools were out here. And then we just progressed from that to big Pantac trucks, the biggest we could get. And then after that, because it was hard to get truck drivers that knew how to sell gas equipment, we ended up going to large vans, which is what we use at the moment. But we had this truck sitting in the yard. It had a custom built body for the purpose of selling gas equipment. And Rob Morton from Tandy Leather joined us, and he walked out the back and said, "Oh, we could use that for shows." And we took it to a couple of shows, but it just didn't work. It's too cramped. It wasn't spacious enough. The shelving was not suited to what we wanted. And I don't know, I must have been delirious, and I agreed to some modifications. They cut out the side wall so it folds down. It's got a roof that folds up. It's got a handrail and stairs, and you get up there. It's a nice little showroom, so we can take it to all the events. And it's all packed up, ready to go. So, yeah, happy days, really.
It's
much
like
easier
it's
to
like
set
a
up.
food truck that sells steel, huh?
Yeah,
It's like a
exactly.
food-
Exactly. All we need is a menu, you know. What's on the menu today? Oh, W2. And we'll have some, 5160 or whatever. Yeah. Happy days.
It's probably going to be more like one of those soup vans. You're going to have a whole lot of broke knife makers hanging around begging for stuff, seeing what they can get sales on.
Probably got some scraps we can throw on. We'll see how we go. Always do. We get a lot of stuff. We get everything steel, right? I learned a long time ago, the only way to cut steel, to do it professionally and commercially, is water jet. You'll find a lot of people will cut steel different ways, and they'll defend their position to the hilt because, it's cheaper. And that's really what it comes down to. Water jet's not the cheapest way to cut steel. But we water jet all our steel, and as a result, we end up with offcuts, and those offcuts are always around. So it's worth when you come into our store or even at the shows, just asking what they've got in the offcuts bin, because like a 30 mil piece of steel, which is 2 mil undersized from being 32, we can't sell. I'm not going to set up a product for it, so it just goes in the offcuts bin, and you can pick it up. I went down there the other day to go to a mate's house. If you follow my Instagram, we made a bit of mosaic Damascus. That was made out of a piece of 15N20 offcut and a piece of 1075 offcut out of the bin. And so those get sold there through the shop, and stay tuned. Always have a look while you're in here, because I don't want those offcuts. And someone may as well make something out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So those guys that want the scraps, we're there to help. Got you covered.
Just like kitchen, there's no such thing as scrap. It's just extra. It's not scrap. Let's just change it. Just like kitchen, it's not scrap. Just extra steel.
Fair enough.
That's it. Where do you think potato peels came from on the menu?
Potato skins, yeah, right. Now I know. So it's a pretty good thing. Look, it sets up real quick for us, and it packs up quick, and they're two important things. I pay my staff; they're all on, Australian wages, so overtime, double time, Sunday afternoon. Last thing I want to be doing is paying double time to a guy that's there at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, still packing up a show, and they don't want to be there either, by the way. So, the shows are good. It's a good thing. The trucks hopefully be a good thing for us. We've had it since Ironfest, so since April.
Yeah, Ironfest was, like I said, the first time I saw it, and it's a big step up, man. Like, it's actually inviting to go up there now and look at the products and take your time, and you can get, I think at one stage we had about 5 or 6 people up on the platform looking at stuff, and you still didn't feel like you were squished into this little thing. So
yeah, well, let's wait and see.
Good investment, mate.
Let's wait and see how it goes at Sydney when there's 60 people up there. But anyway, never mind. That's the way it is. You
need a bouncer. You need a bouncer on the door with a clicker.
I got to be checking people in and out. I probably wouldn't joke about that. There is a weight limit, so yeah.
You'd be like, you can't come in here with no shoes on, mate.
No, that's right. Yeah, get a collar, get a fucking job, cut your hair. Yeah, right. With honestly, it looked pretty. It looked okay when we had the job done at Ironfest, and you would have seen it there. It had it just looked like an old gas truck with gas sign writing, and that folded it out. Now, since it got vinyl wrapped, the whole truck's like they got it vinyl wrapped in gloss black with big blacksmithing and knife making motif down the side, and it looks pretty swanky, to be honest. Yeah, all the supplier logos and things like that got put on there. Yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah, pretty nice.
That's pretty cool. So what's obviously we've got the show coming up on Friday. It's Friday for certain people to bump in and everything. What's on the cards between now and then for people?
Between now and Friday or after?
Oh, just prep.
Now on Friday, man.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I just want to hear Mert shit himself.
It's all yours, Mert.
Oh, man. Do you remember, like, 1 month ago, I was talking to Kev, hey, man, like, this time it's going to be a whole different, because every year, Sydney show, I finish up in my shed, like, midnight. I pack everything. I drive to Sydney. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. By the time I fall asleep, it's 4 o'clock. Then I wake up with the 3 hours of sleep. And first day of the Sydney show, I'm like a zombie with 3 hours of sleep. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this year. And I was saying to Kev, look, man, I'm going to be there Friday afternoon. Well, the chances are...
You better be.
Yeah, it's not looking great, man.
Hey, I booked the room Friday and Saturday night, mate. If you're there Friday night, I don't care. I'll put the security dead latch on there.
Yeah, that chain.
Well, before we did the podcast, before we started recording this podcast episode today, I was just finishing off my sheaths and polishing up guards, and I've got to go back and a bit sort of OCD. I'll repolish the handles, and then I've got to sharpen all my knives. So just when you get to that stage where you go, man, I'm on track, this is easy, you just sort of, like I said with Mert, you write your to-do list on the board, and there's more shit on there than you think, and you're far out, man. So next few days are, like, for me anyway, are going to be all the tail end stuff, the cleaning up, the sharpening, buying things like bags and stuff to give if people buy a knife, to put it in a bag so that you can, they're not walking around the show with a knife in a sheath, because they're not allowed to technically.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of admin stuff, but yeah, busy, and then we can get together and talk shit on Friday, Saturday, and part of Sunday.
That's pretty much what happens.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to clean my shop, man. Like my bins are overflowing. I keep emptying, but my bins are full, and I got sandpaper scraps. And usually by Thursday, I don't even use the bins. Like if I'm doing sandpaper, I just like throw it on the floor. And not Monday, but the Tuesday after the show, I do a big shop cleanup. And this year's shop cleanup, this show's shop cleanup is going to be ugly. Probably have like 20 kilos of dust sitting on the benches and on the floor. I got sandpaper and shit everywhere. So
yeah.
Well, I'm teaching a one-on-one class on Monday. Yeah, thankfully it's with a fellow, Rob French, who's a knife maker down in Tassie.
Yeah, sure.
While Rob's up here, he asked if he can come down and do some stuff in the workshop. So
yeah, nice guy.
I hope it's going to get a little bit of a clean-up, but I hope he understands Monday when he comes in that it's not going to be as good as it would normally be.
Just kick it all under the benches, mate. That's all you do.
There's no room. I got 2 roller doors. Depends on which way the wind's blowing. I roll one up and blow everything out.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's the easiest way to clean it. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, it's been good talking with you. Probably should call it a day.
We're all pretty busy. I've got to get my business and strategic plan finished, which was supposed to be done in June. So I've been working on that, and I know it doesn't sound as exciting, but that's my day.
I have a very strategic plan. It's head down, bomb up. That's
make more knives.
Get shit done. Make knives. Well, guys, it's great talking to you, and I hope everybody will enjoy this episode. And so looking forward for the next one.
If anybody following us on Instagram or Facebook, if we have a Facebook page when you're looking for us, if you're following us, how's about you give us some suggestions, what you want to hear? Is there anything you want us to talk about? If you've got any questions for us, we'll get structured and have all fancy segments and do all of that down the track. But at the moment, we're a little bit free and easy. How about you give us some ideas, tell us what you want to hear, and we'll go from there. Thanks very much for downloading and listening to the podcast, and hopefully you get something out of it.
What's the name of the podcast again?
Knifemaking Down Under.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
We promise to remember the name of our podcast by the sort of 5th or 6th episode too, if we get that far.
I hope so. Never mind. All right. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good one.
Righto. See you, everyone.
See ya.